and we're playing my first fish of the year. Looks like a nice one, guys. Let's get it up and see what it weighs. Oh, come on. No way. I was recently invited to fish the incredible Combley Lakes on the Isle of Wight, which is a venue I've visited before when filming for the ProLogic channel. In the past I've done well here, except this time it was winter, and I had no idea how the fishing would be. Nevertheless, I was excited to be back and did a lap of the lake in the hope of finding signs of fish. Not only was I looking for fish, but also any clues as to whether the owner had been feeding, or the anglers lucky enough to fish here recently may have flattened areas or bankside vegetation when baiting up. Due to the wet conditions, I decided to set up the bivvy first and get everything dry and inside before getting on with prepping my bait. So the first job that I want to do on this session is to get some bait out on a few different spots, just to let the fish hopefully come in and have a little feed with no lines in the water. It's something that I've realised, particularly fishing this lake here at Combley, that the fish are very pressured, and you might be lucky and catch a fish early on. Quite often I'll have a fish in the first night and then it'll go quiet for sort of 24 to 36 hours. And as I'm only doing 48 hours on this session, I don't really want that to happen. So what I'm going to do is put a little bit of bait in and just let the fish hopefully come in and have a few mouthfuls, get a bit confident, and then I'm going to get the rods out just before dark and fish overnight, and hopefully the fish will have enough confidence then to feed a little bit more enthusiastically, and I might be able to nick a fish off a spot. I'm going to have 4 different spots baited, so that if I catch off a spot, I'm going to move that rod onto the 4th spot and just free bait on the spot where I've caught from, and that way I can bounce around between spots, because quite often again on here I've found that if you catch a fish off a spot, that spot will dry up completely. The fish kind of mark it as dangerous. So by having extra spots baited, hopefully you can trick the fish into not knowing which spots are dangerous, and hopefully catch a couple more fish. I've only got a short session, 48 hours. We're in February, it's not going to be prolific, but if I can manage, 2 or 3 fish as opposed to just 1 fish, I'll be really, really happy. The bait that I'm using is a mixture of 2 different sizes of pellets. What I've done is I've boiled the kettle and I've poured the hot water just to cover the pellets, and then give them a bit of a stir which will release all the goodness within, and then I put the lid on and let them sit for a bit. That allows them to soften up and they become almost paste-like. Then I'm going to add a little bit of salt to that, just to add an extra mineral content to the bait, because this time of year, leading up to the spring, the fish are getting ready for spawning, and salt is really important in their diet at this time of year. So if I can give them that, hopefully that's extra attraction that's going to pull them in on the spots. Then I add a little bit of boilie crumb, 2 different types of boilies just crumbed into there, just to give the flavour to match the hook baits that I'm going to be using really, but also added different attraction from within those baits as well. And then finally I add a little bit of sweet corn as well into the mix, just for a little bit of colour, but also I'm going to use a little bit of yellow on my hook baits. So a little bit of yellow in the mix just helps to match what I'm using as a hook bait. I don't want the hook bait to stand out particularly, because again, these fish are quite pressured and I don't want it to look dangerous to them. So if I can have a little trimmed down boilie with a little bit of yellow pop-up on top, just in amongst a mix of bits of sweet corn and my sort of pasty ground bait on the bottom, then hopefully my hook bait's kind of the only sort of solid food particle that they can pick up, and I should hopefully get lucky and catch a couple of fish. Yeah, it's a bit of an experiment just to see if I can build the confidence of the fish rather than trying to wade in and catch one straight away. I'm just going to give him a bit of free bait and hopefully it'll pay off. So the bait's out there. I've got four spots that I said I was going to bait up, fish 3 and then obviously bounce between them if I catch on one of the spots. Now I'm not going to bore you with showing all my rigs because I'm basically just going to use my normal Amnesia D rig, which you will have seen on my channel millions of times before. But importantly, I want to talk about the rig length. Now I did a video on this last year all about rig length, quite popular actually, that video. Lots of information, so if you haven't seen that one, go and check that out on my channel. I'll link it down below as well. But the rig length for this session, my thinking is we're in the winter still, it's February, fish aren't moving very quickly, so I don't want a long rig that's going to give them a chance to move too far before they hit the weight of the lead. But the fish in here are reasonably big. The average size has got to be getting on for 30 pounds, so I want a slightly longer rig than I would be using on a venue with smaller fish. So I'm going to start at around 7 inches. Normally in the warmer months I'd probably use about 9-10 inches on here, but because we're in the winter I think 7 inches is good. If the fish were smaller I'd probably go 5.5 inches, but I think 7 is about perfect for the amount the fish are going to be moving and the size of the fish. So I'm going to be using inline leads because I think they hook the fish quicker, and I've got a nice firm bottom out there so I can get away with it. Don't have to cast very far. In fact, I'm using a bait boat so I don't have to cast at all. So an inline lead is going to go out, drop nicely down, land on the firm bottom so it will stay above the silt, and then the rig's going to lay out nicely away from the lead with that sort of semi-stiff Amnesia material and give me a really good chance of hooking a fish, should I be lucky enough for one to pick up the hook bait. Right, I am rapidly losing the light here, but I'm just getting the last rod out after waiting all day. About 5-6 hours I've left the spots alone with a little bit of bait on there. I'm just hoping that any carp that were sort of in the vicinity may have moved in on them spots. And now they might not necessarily be feeding yet because this time of year I always think you have only a fairly small window of feeding, but hopefully they'll be aware that the bait's there. They may have sort of got confidence in it and have a little munch when they get hungry, which in my experience at this time of year can be kind of through the night or just as it's getting dark, which it is now. So time will tell, guys. I'm just putting minimal bait in the boat, a little sprinkle of corn, a few broken boilies, and then a little bit of that mix that I showed you earlier on, just balled up so that it gets down to the bottom in a few nice little chunks. So I've woken up to what can only be described as a pretty horrible day, to be honest. We've got quite a strong wind now. I think similar to yesterday, you know, sort of 25 to 30 mile an hour kind of southwesterly, which is a good wind, you know, a warmer wind than it would be if it was north or northeasterly. But, you know, this time of year, any wind is kind of cold, isn't it? And we've got sideways rain as well coming into the swim. So, yeah, it's not the nicest day for filming. So I'm just kind of stuck in my bivvy at the moment, drinking coffee and watching the water, really. And the rods, unfortunately, have remained silent overnight, although I did get liners on a couple of them. So I feel like I'm in reasonable areas. You know, I'm on the fish, but they might not have necessarily fed yet. And I do believe that recent captures have been in the daytime. Looking at the pictures of the fish, they've all been in the daytime. So I am going to obviously string it out as long as I can and leave the rods in, and in the hope that the fish will come on the feed. And all I need is one bite, really, just to tell me when that feeding window is, and then hopefully I can capitalise on it and in the next sort of 24 hours of the session hopefully get a couple more. So yeah, I'm just going to be sheltering in a bivvy for now and probably redoing the rods around about lunchtime, just in case there's a little afternoon feeding window and the fish decide to have a munch. So yeah, it's a bit grim at the moment, but it's nice to be out, nice to have the lake to myself, and hopefully we can make something happen in the second half of the session. Well, finally got off the mark after nearly 24 hours. It's been a long time coming, and this weather has not made it easy to watch the water, but yeah, my left-hand rod just let out a subtle couple of bleeps. Didn't rip off by any means, and we're playing my first fish of the year. Come on, watch those other lines. Come on. Looks like a nice one, guys. Yes, get in. Woohoo! Buzzing. That's nice. Right, let's get it up and see what it weighs, guys. Whoa, no way. You're not going to believe this. It's 41 pound, 6 ounces. A winter 40 on my first session of the year. Oh, I can't believe it. Yep, it's definitely 41 pounds, 6 ounces. Well, hopefully this session produces another fish, but if it doesn't, who cares? Happy days. Right, I'm just going to rest it in the water while I sort the camera out, and then I'll show it to you properly. I'm sat in the boot of my car because it still hasn't stopped raining. It's been going since the early hours, and all morning it's constant. Now, it just seemed like it was easing off a minute ago, and I was going to get the fish out and take shots for you. Now, at Combley Lakes, there is a rule that you have to do all the shots in the water, and they've got this little dugout area down here that you can see, where you can sort of get in with your fish and take your photos. So what I did was I reversed the car up to that area, and I had my tripod down here underneath the boot to you know, shelter the camera from the rain. And I got it all set up, all nice, and I was in the water with the fish, and I started doing photos. I always like to do photos first just to make sure I've got them in the bag, and then I flick into video mode and do a little bit of video while I release the fish, you know, and obviously you can't take photos after you've released the fish. So I was getting photos done, clicked off the first one, and then the fish went ballistic because he's been sat in the sling for half an hour while I've been waiting for the rain to stop. and he's managed to get out of my hands. I've dropped my remote in the lake as well. Luckily that floated. It's in a plastic bag, so it's kind of waterproof, but got my remote back, but unfortunately the fish got away before I could do any video footage of it. So all I've got to show for it is one photo with a rather funny facial expression, guys. So yeah, give us a thumbs up if you think this is a hilarious photo of a winter 40. You couldn't write it really, but who cares? I caught the fish and I'm absolutely buzzing, and I've still got one night to go. So I've currently got no rods fishing at the moment. I'm going to go and use the facilities, get warmed up, you know, a bit shivery now, a bit cold because it got quite wet. Go get warmed up, freshened up, and get the rods back out for tonight, and hopefully we can have another fish and redeem ourselves and get some video footage of it this time. Right, so according to my forecast, the rain's supposed to be stopping in the next half an hour, so that gives me a little window of opportunity to get the rods all sorted and back out for the night tonight. So what I'm going to do is just go around, put a bit of bait on the spots again, and leave it for about an hour, just to give the fish that little bit of free bait, which hopefully will get them back in. And if I'm lucky, when I get the rods out, I might get a bite quite quickly, but you know, this time of year, really, they're just going to be kind of feeding in very short bursts, and this is more of a tactic for kind of in the warmer months when they're feeding more sporadically throughout a 24-hour period. And you know, if you can get them in on your spot and feeding with no lines in the water, then it can really pay dividends, and you can catch multiple fish off the same spot. But you know, you got to try these things, and it makes me feel better that I'm doing something a little bit different to what most people probably do on this lake, which is probably just send the boat out with some bait, drop it, and then chill out. So I'm just making up a few little ground bait balls. I'm going to walk round, put 10 or so little 20mm balls of ground bait on each spot, 10 or 12, and then about 6 or 7 boilies, and that is it really, because we're in the winter, you know, the water's cold and the fish aren't going to be feeding like mad, so I'm just nicking bites or hoping to nick bites, and I've had one, so it's been a good start, and we've got about 24 hours to go. So yeah, I'm going to get this bait made up, get round there and feed the spots, and then get all the rigs sorted and ready to go for the second night. And let's hope we can get another nice Combley fish like that last one and actually show it to you properly this time. Right then, going into the second and final evening, everything's done and the rain has stopped, so it's nice. I can actually get out of my bivvy, watch the water a little bit without getting absolutely soaking wet, and also get the camera outside and film a little bit more, because it's been quite hard going on that front on this session. So yeah, it is what it is in the winter, you know, weather's against you and the fishing's against you. It's not easy to catch fish at any time of year, but particularly on a lake like this where it's you know, fairly small and pressured and it's not heavily stocked. You know, there's between 40 and 50 fish in here, but they're all quite big, you know, averaging about 30 pounds, so they're quite wise fish, quite hard to catch. So I'm really, really happy to have had that 40 pounder. Bit gutted that I didn't get any decent footage of it for you, but at least I got one photo, which, you know, wasn't my best photo, but at least it proves that I caught it. So yeah, I'm just going to put some dinner on now, watch the water for a little bit, and keep everything crossed that we're going to get another one before we have to leave tomorrow. Right, it is the middle of the night, so it can mean only one thing. We've caught another fish, and it's another absolute beautiful, big, scaly fish from Combley, and I'm absolutely blown away. Now, normally on this lake, there's a policy of taking all your shots and video and stuff in the water, but I am on my own here. It is the middle of the night, so I've made the decision, just for safety of me and the fish really, to do it on the bank. And it's in a nice big mat, nice big cradle mat here, and it should be absolutely safe and sound. There's lots of leeches on the fish, which I'm just trying to get rid of. Let's give it a bit of water. Make sure it's all happy. And I'll get it up to show you. What a result for February. And there you go, guys. That's £36, 12 ounces of absolute stunning February linear from Combley Lakes on the Isle of Wight, near to where I live, and I do feel very lucky to be down here. So thanks to Will for having me. It's been a great session, hard going with the weather, and you know, the coots have been against me and all that, but I've had a 40 and a 30 today, so I don't really care. Let's get this one back, get the rod back out, and hopefully another one will come along before we need to leave tomorrow. Well, I can't quite believe I'm saying this, guys, but it's happened again. I've got another beautiful scaly one. It looks to be over £30, so just gonna get it out and weigh it now, and then I'll sort the camera out and I'll get it up to show you what a session this is turning into. Right, it's an absolute peach, this fish. A near fully scaled. Oh, look at that. Get in. Another 30, this one £35, 8 ounces. So that's 2 30s and a 40 today. I just can't believe my luck, really. We're in February, first session of the year as well, and I managed to bag a 40 and 2 30s. I would never have imagined it before I came. You know, one fish on this session, I would have been more than happy. But it just seems that that little bit of milder weather we've had, you know, 10 degrees, has really brought them on. And yeah, we've just got lucky, I think. There you go, equally pretty on that side. Almost fully scaled. They're just so stunning in this lake. I can't think of nicer fish, really. Absolutely beautiful. In the daytime, they're all nice and dark as well. It doesn't really do it justice at night, but I'd rather get them photographed and back rather than trying to keep them all night. It's just not right, really. So yeah, let's get this fish back and get the rod back out. Come on. Good morning, guys. I did not expect to be sat here having caught a 40 and 2 30s in February. What a one to remember, really. You know, really, really beautiful fish, big fish, and 3 of them in February. You know, I couldn't have asked for more than that, really. I would have been more than happy with just one. So if you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe. Leave a comment if you've got any questions, and leave a thumbs up as well. It really helps me get the video out to more people. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.